It's October 28th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the general election in Japan. Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party has lost its majority in parliament for the first time in 15 years, in what appears to be a reflection of public anger over economic worries and political scandals. Ukraine's military intelligence says Russia is now moving North Korean soldiers to the front lines. A South Korean government delegation is set to brief NATO on the latest movement of North Korean forces in Russia. The long-stalled Gaza ceasefire talks are resumed over the weekend, with the goal of facilitating an exchange of hostages and prisoners. Egypt says it proposed a two-day ceasefire during which 4 hostages would be let go. Exit polls show Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party and its coalition partner Komeito have lost their majority in the lower house. It's their first loss in 15 years, and a huge blow to Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Isung has more.
The Liberal Democratic Party and its junior coalition partner party, Komeito, had the majority in Japan's lower house, securing 288 seats before Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba dissolved Japan's House of Representatives earlier this month. With the general election taking place on Sunday, an exit poll by NHK shows that the LDP-Komeito coalition is set to lose its majority for the first time in 15 years. The coalition is expected to secure just 215 seats out of the 465 lower house seats, short of the 233 seats needed for a majority. Meanwhile, the main opposition Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan is projected to have gained a significant number of seats, going from 98 seats to 148. The projection also saw smaller parties gaining seats. The leader of the main opposition party, Yoshihiko Noda, said the loss of the lower house majority by the LDP and its coalition partner was a huge achievement, saying that the country is on the eve of a change of government. With the loss of a majority, the Ishiba administration may struggle to form a government. Pundits say in order to remain in power, the LDP could try to bring other parties to its coalition or simply try to rule with a minority government. Both options, they say, could put Ishiba's position as prime minister in jeopardy. The LDP has seen its public support decline significantly since a money scandal in late 2023, on top of increasing living costs in the country and a weakening yen. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Ceasefire negotiations in the Israel-Gaza conflict resumed in Qatar. Now, this comes amid an ongoing exchange of attacks between Hezbollah and Israel. Iuni reports.
Negotiations to advance a ceasefire deal in the Israel-Gaza conflict have resumed in Qatar. According to reports, CIA Director William Burns and the head of Israeli intelligence service Mossad arrived in Doha to meet with Qatar's prime minister to discuss a hostage release deal. On the same day, Egypt publicly proposed a 2-day ceasefire, during which 4 Israeli hostages in Gaza would be exchanged for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails, followed by more negotiations within 10 days aiming for a complete ceasefire. On Saturday, the Israel Defense Forces announced that it targeted aerial defense systems and missile manufacturing facilities in Iran in retaliation for Iranian attacks on October 1st. Iranian state media reported that around 5 people were killed in the strikes, including 1 civilian. In what other countries, including the U.S., hope will be the end of hostile exchanges, Israel's prime minister said that the strikes severely harmed Iran and that Israel had achieved all of its goals. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader commented that the attack should neither be exaggerated nor downplayed, but he did not call for retaliation. Hezbollah and Israel continued to exchange attacks on Sunday, with Hezbollah announcing a strike on a military site in Israel's northern coastal city of Haifa. They also issued a civilian evacuation order for border areas, marking the first such directive by Hezbollah since the conflict began. According to Israeli sources, some of the 75 rockets fired from Lebanon were intercepted, but a 57-year-old woman was seriously injured. On the same day, the Israeli military ordered civilians in 14 villages in southern Lebanon to evacuate north before launching airstrikes. The Lebanese Health Ministry reported that at least 21 people were killed on Sunday in Israeli strikes on 3 different areas in southern Lebanon. Lee In-hee, Arirang News.
And South Korea's top office convened an emergency meeting to discuss and brace for the impact of Israel's attack on Iran. On Sunday, Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-hyo and Chief of Staff for Policy Sung Tae-yoon co-chaired a session with officials from related ministries. Addressing the safety of overseas citizens, businesses and diplomatic missions, the meeting focused on ways to protect and evacuate South Korean nationals if the situation deteriorates. The government emphasized its close cooperation with the international community to restore stability in the Middle East as soon as possible, while preparing to take preemptive actions. While it expects a limited impact on the Korean economy, Seoul will maintain its 24-hour monitoring system on financial markets and global oil prices, and if needed, consider additional tax cuts for fuel. Intergovernmental organization, the Financial Action Task Force has upgraded South Korea's international standard compliance evaluation grade to the highest rating. The Financial Intelligence Unit under the Financial Services Commission announced Sunday that the task force decided to upgrade South Korea's rating after its annual meeting held at the headquarters of the OECD from October 21st to the 25th. Now, the upgrade means that the country goes from being a country that requires a strengthened follow-up inspection to a regular follow-up inspection. Meanwhile, North Korea has been designated as a country with a high risk of money laundering and terrorist financing for the 14th straight year. North Korean soldiers are now being transferred to Russia's front lines, Ukraine's military intel agency claims. If they are there to fight against Ukraine, what role will these soldiers take on? Let's turn to Dr. Bruce Bennett for more. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So Russia is reportedly transporting these North Korean soldiers to the front lines via trucks with civilian license plates. Does this mean their participation in the war is pretty much imminent?
Well, I think the civilian license plates are indicating that the Russians are short on trucks. They've had a lot that have been damaged. Yes, it probably does mean that the commitment is imminent, that they will be used, but it also suggests that they will likely be used in mass assaults, effectively cannon fodder, the Russians not really caring for their lives, hoping that they will cause a breakthrough, but not necessarily expecting an effective commitment. That suggests these probably aren't all that much special forces. Among North Korea's 200,000 or so special forces, some are really very capable. These may not be at the top end.
Well, let's say these soldiers do take part in this fight against Ukraine. Dr. Bennett, what kind of roles do you think they are expected to take on?
Oh, I think they will be carrying on massed assaults against the front Ukrainian lines. Think of the Korean War when the Chinese carried out mass assaults against the South Korean and U.S. forces. That's the kind of thing I would be expecting. They haven't been in place long enough to get intelligence on where Ukrainian units are, that sort of thing. So this sounds like it's a mass assault kind of approach.
Well, in the meantime, the South Korean government delegation is set to attend a brief to NATO on Monday and brief them on North Korean military deployment trends. Now, how meaningful will their trip be?
Oh, I think this could be a very meaningful trip. This is a case where the U.S., South Korea, and the NATO countries need to be trying to get Kim Jong-un to stop sending forces. I mean, he sent maybe 12,000 already. That doesn't mean that's the end of what he's planning to send. So we need to be cooperating together to take action to convince him to turn otherwise. I think also South Korean participation, support of NATO, support of Ukraine is key to Ukraine handling the situation.
Well, on top of sending a delegation to NATO, the South Korean government is also reportedly considering dispatching a monitoring group to Ukraine. Now, if they do get dispatched there, what will be their roles and how will their participation be any helpful or meaningful in dealing with this situation?
Well, I think this is key. This is the key point. If I were the South Korean government, I would be sending psychological operations personnel to Ukraine. I would be trying to communicate with the North Koreans by radio, by leaflets, by other means. Here are a lot of probably elite class people from North Korea, young people. They're probably being treated very badly by the Russians, very inferior treatment. And they're probably prepared, some of them, to defect. We've heard about defections already from the troops that were previously there in the area. We ought to try and get those defections. We ought to try to also communicate outside information to the soldiers who don't defect, so that information will go back to their families, probably many of whom live in Pyongyang. This is exactly what Kim Jong-un doesn't want. He doesn't want defectors. He doesn't want information getting back to his country. If we can convince him that he's in danger of that by giving troops to Russia, maybe he won't send any more.
Well, Dr. Bennett, then are you saying that we'll have to wait more until South Korea decides to, deploy lethal weapons to Ukraine?
Oh, no, I don't think we have to have South Korea deploy lethal weapons. I think the psychological operations at this stage is key. Now, the lethal weapons will help. That's very helpful, but there's a legal issue, as I understand it, in South Korea. And anything that South Korea can provide to assist Ukraine is going to help. Ukraine is fighting on a very narrow margin by trying to get resources from lots of countries. So South Korea can help with the lethal means, but attacking Kim is a matter of attacking his psychology, his fear of outside information, and his fear of his people providing inside information to the outside world.
Well, then we have to talk about what may be on Washington's mind. What cards do you think the U.S. is considering to take? I mean, what actions will Washington take in response to North Korean soldiers' actual participation in the war against Ukraine?
Well, I think Washington will initially attempt to send more resources to Ukraine to try to counterbalance the North Korean action. But I think ultimately Washington is in a similar position to the South Korean government. If we want to break the cohesion of the North Korean forces there, if we want to convince Kim that this really wasn't a good idea, we need to be cooperating in a psychological campaign against his troops. I don't think these are the very top level special forces. I think they're much lower, much more vulnerable to psychological operations. And we ought to be trying to help in that process to convince Kim that this was a really bad idea, because I think it was for him.
Alrighty, Dr. Bennett, thank you as always for sharing your insight with us. You have a good one.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And amid heightened tensions on the Korean Peninsula following North Korea's deployment of its troops to Russia, the foreign and defense chiefs of South Korea and the U.S. will hold 2+2 talks this week. According to Thurs of Foreign Ministry, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-il and Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun will hold talks with their U.S. counterparts, State Secretary Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in Washington on Thursday. It's the first 2+2 meeting in around 3 years since their fifth such talks in 2021. Now, the top officials will have comprehensive discussions on issues related to the Korean Peninsula, especially on ways to respond to Pyongyang's dispatch of troops in support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The cool autumn breeze is back, and so are vibrantly colored fall flowers. Hwasun-gun County is especially enjoying the autumn blossoms with a fall flower festival, bringing many visitors to the region. Our Park Kwon-woo tells us more.
UNESCO's World Heritage Dolmen site in Hwasun-gun County in southwest South Korea gets more special in the autumn. That's because the 2.3 million square meter area, similar in size to over 3,000 football fields, gets partially filled with many different kinds of flowers as part of the Hwasun Dolmen Fall Flower Festival. As you can see, this festival has a variety of vibrant colorful flowers blossoming in this spacious area, allowing people to take nice selfies here. Beautiful flowers from golden sunflowers to delicate cosmos and chrysanthemums are just some of the flowers you can enjoy. A total of 10 different flowers that bloom in autumn are on display at the site, with special artwork also intriguing visitors.
I really like how they make different kinds of animals with flowers. So I took a lot of pictures. I'll come here every year as long as I'm alive.
It's really cute, so coming here so relaxed. First time watching, it's really good.
It's great to spend time with my family in this wonderful weather with a gentle breeze.
The festival also captures the interest of visitors with its signature snacks for sale at an outdoor cafe in front of a large sunflower field. One of the most popular desserts was the all-black ice cream, created to commemorate the region's coal mine which closed last year. It has a sweet taste, but is also salty to express the saltiness of a miner's sweat. And due to the recent reading craze following South Korean writer Han Gang's Nobel Prize win, a zone was also created near the dolmens for people to read and relax.
The festival was planned to promote the cultural heritage of Hwasun, and we are aiming to develop various dolmen-related programs to make this a bigger festival.
With a target of bringing in around 200,000 people to the event just this year, the Fall Flower Festival runs until November 3rd. 박건우, Arirang News, Hwasun.
Now, over in Germany, the country's public broadcaster RBB launched the country's first radio program solely dedicated to K-pop. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
저스틴 팀페와 함께하는 프리츠 최고의 음악 K-pop.
What you just heard is Germany's first regular K-pop radio show, Beste Musik K-Pop. Fritz, a radio station under a public broadcaster, und Funk Berlin Brandenburg, officially launched the show on October 14th. It's the product of months of collaboration between LDP and the Korean Cultural Center, Germany. Justin Timpe is the show's host and producer. He fell in love with K-pop after first listening to BTS 10 years ago.
So perfectly produced, everything, like the music videos, like also the styles. They try new things, which I never heard before. Like, you would never go and put a bit classic into a rap part and then a bit R&B, and then at the end we have pop.
Justin is involved in every step of the show, from researching trends to curating playlists, making sure the program is open to all listeners.
What I do is I look, what stars do we have over here? Like Dua Lipa, Coldplay, Bruno Mars. And then I check to what kind of K-pop songs do we have, which are very similar to them, and try to make the example. Like, hey, we have Dua Lipa. In Korea, you have someone else, like Jeon Somi.
The 2-hour show offers more than just music. It introduces Korean dramas, films, and food, and features interviews with emerging K-pop artists. The response has been beyond expectations.
The day afterwards, I came to the station and people were overwhelming and they were saying, Justin, we never had a show with so much people writing us. This 2 hours of the first show will put in together everything we can hear and see from the K-pop scene.
Germany wasn't always the playground for the Korean wave. Asian dramas were rarely aired on TV, and K-pop was largely seen as niche culture. But now, that's changing.
K-pop's global rise has ignited interest here, and streaming services now allow instant access to Korean content for German viewers. RBB is one of the major broadcasters in the Berlin region, with Fritz attracting around 183,000 daily listeners. The launch of this program shows that K-pop is becoming part of the mainstream in Germany.
Justin hopes the show will be more than just a place to play music. He wants it to become a community for listeners.
They can talk not only with me, but also with the community, with the other people, about what's going on in their K-pop universe. I want to make K-pop more, let's say, closer, so that also people who are not into the scene directly can tune in and know what is K-pop?
If you want to know more about K-pop and Korea, tune into Beste Musik K-Pop every other Monday at 8 p.m. local time. 송유진, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Xiang. Good morning, Xiang.
Good morning, Dami.
Let's start with the U.S. election. What were the two candidates up to this weekend? Any changes in the polls?
Yes, with just over 1 week left until the November 5th U.S. presidential election, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and Republican candidate Donald Trump were on the campaign trails this weekend. Now, with the latest data from polling website 538 showing a lead of some 1.3 percentage points for Vice President Harris as she campaigned in the key swing state of Pennsylvania on Sunday, rival and former President Donald Trump held a rally at New York City's Madison Square Garden. Harrison on Sunday encouraged young first-time voters in a campaign rally, saying that there's 9 days left in 1 month in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime, as she trailed through Philadelphia, the most populous city in Pennsylvania. Harris also focused on abortion rights, calling for urgent action, while saying that the younger generation know fewer rights than your mothers and grandmothers. Now, Trump, on the other hand, returned to his hometown of New York City on Sunday for a rally in Madison Square Garden, attended by his popular backers such as Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson. While Trump is expected to focus on his economic and border agenda, his pre-show lineup drew attention as some speakers at Trump's rally threw insults at Harris, Hillary Clinton, illegal immigrants, and the island of Puerto Rico. Now moving on to Mexico, where a bus crashed on a highway in the central Mexican state of Zacatecas on Saturday, killed at least 19 and injured 6 others. The passenger bus, which was traveling to the Mexico-US border city of Juarez, collided with the back of a tractor trailer carrying corn that had become loose before rolling and falling into a ravine under the highway. The State Attorney General's office said that it was carrying out investigations to arrest the driver of the tractor trailer. Mexico's National Guard and the Army were involved in the recovery operation to retrieve the remains of victims. U.S. President Joe Biden formally apologized to the Native American community on Friday for the U.S. government-run boarding school system that physically, emotionally, and sexually abused hundreds of Native American children. An apology Biden called long overdue made him the first U.S. president to issue an apology for the program, which lasted for 150 years before it was shut down in 1969. Now, Biden described the abuse that happened at boarding schools, which were intended to assimilate American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian children, as a blot on American history, while calling it a sin on our soul. Now, according to an Interior Department investigation, at least 973 Native American children died in these schools. Taiwan celebrated diversity in one of East Asia's largest pride parades on Saturday, with over 180,000 people filling the streets of central Taipei. Marking the 22nd annual parade this year, participants from Taiwan and around the world were seen marching in rainbow-colored clothing to celebrate and raise awareness of the LGBTQ+ rights. Now, Taiwan has built a reputation as one of Asia's most gender-inclusive countries after it legalized same-sex marriage in 2019, which was a first for Asia.
We are already into the last week of October and having a foggy and murky start to the day. Overnight rain in southern provinces has let up, but easterly winds are dropping showers to east coast regions. East of Gangwon-do province could see up to 60 millimeters with strong winds, and Jeju could see on and off rain through tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, western parts of Korea could have high levels of dust through the first half of the day, but the air quality visibility should improve as the day goes on. Now, we begin the day with temperatures lower than yesterday, then highs will go up slightly higher. Seoul and Gwangju will be getting up to 21 degrees with some sunnier skies expected. Daegu and Gyeongju topping out at 18 degrees with the showers. Now, warmer than average temperatures to wrap up the month, then big changes ahead next week. Temperatures will tumble more than 10 degrees. So enjoy a much-deserved stretch of pleasant autumn weather this week. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for our Monday edition of New Day at Arirang. Have a wonderful start to the week.